All right, I'm going to declare a quorum. I'm going to call the meeting, City of Groton Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, December 23rd to order. For Patrick, please call the roll.
Present are Mayor Keith Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Jamal Beckford, Councilors Reginald Stanford, Guinevere Depot, Minerva Ortiz, Rashad Carter, Finance Director Ron Uhas, Clerk Deborah Patrick.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with 758 police radios. Chief.
Package before you, we had a capital improvement plan that we brought in front of the town in the previous budget last year. It's an unusual funding stream where it's a town of Groton SIP, but it is a SIP that we spent within the city of Groton to benefit our department. The benefit to Groton overall is it brings us all onto the state radio system, and the amount of money that we have on there provide us with portable radios, and will provide us with the base radios in the vehicles, and some upgrades in our dispatch area to go onto the state radio system. To achieve that end, you have a two-prong motion from you. The first one would authorize a memorandum of understanding between the city of Groton and the state of Connecticut to allow us to go onto their system and utilize their equipment. The radios are phenomenal. Be a significant upgrade for us coming forward. Also gives the ability of interoperability. We can actually hear each other what's going on outside the scanner and talk to each other directly. For a little under $200,000, you're getting the equivalent of about a $2 million radio system. And it's all said and done. First prong would have the memorandum of understanding and negotiated between the city and the state of Connecticut by the mayor. And then when we execute the SIP agreement, I would do a town of Groton vouchers and through their normal purchasing process and have the equipment come in, and we would mirror as best we could what they have over in the town. The system that the state has is excellent. When I was a trooper, it was horrible. What they have now is state of the art. They've done a tremendous job. It's very cost effective. It allows municipalities to talk to each other, work together. I went over and I met with Chief Darren Stewart from Stone PD and looked at their dispatch area, and I also looked at how they were handling all the way down to individual discussion groups. When we have the fireworks, anybody who comes in on a mutual aid to work with us, we can all go on a common channel. So we would actually have the ability to communicate with each other directly. So if something should happen, we can act a lot more coordination and act. It's a good upgrade. When I was hired by Mayor Hedrick, I was tasked to upgrade as best I could equipment and technology within the department. We picked up new guns. Also in the audience, I want to credit Captain Eric Jenkins, who's been meeting weekly with IT to bring this. He'll be the point man on this. He'll report directly to me and report everything that's going on to the council so that you would know. Before our timetable on it, I'd like to give you that I had it up next week, but that we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to try to get that up as quick as we can. IT's a tricky bird. Every now and then, Murphy shows up right on time. But my goal is to get it up as quick as we can.
Okay, any questions or comments for the chief?
Now, when the equipment come in, it's going to come in all at one time, or is it going to be like waves, or like would they get like 10 and 10, or is everything's going to come in at one?
We would purchase in mass.
Okay.
So everybody with a portable radio coming in. As far as the fitting out the cars, that as you know, that's going to be a more time-intensive process. One thing, I'm a big fan of redundancy, and I did not give up our current radio system nor our current towers. So if anything goes down, which could happen, and then these things happen, we would immediately have an alternate channel that we would use.
Okay.
I think it's one of those things that's better be prepared if something goes wrong. Not that the state wouldn't have stuff up quick, they would. I mean, they have satellite trucks, the worst case scenario would be down for a couple hours. But a lot can happen in those couple hours, and we want to ensure that we have those systems up. These portable radios are phenomenal. I heard Chief Stewart call Stonington's police station from the parking lot of AquaTurf in Southington, loud and clear. So even if the towers went down, I'm of the opinion they were probably still, this system is sophisticated enough, it would still work. I'd ask Councilor Carter, has that been your experience? Have you- it's been that good?
It's good. There's actually experience this past weekend in was Westerly, and you had four different agencies. I don't know if you guys came over. Did you guys go over to that?
We did.
So 5 or more agencies working together, and it's important to have that be on the same system. You know, if not, then you're rather than transmitting, you possibly calling, and you're missing that extra time where you can just be communicating right then and there. You know, so time is valuable.
We used to accomplish that through the hotline. Years ago, that's become antiquated technology, and now we have the ability to do it right on the portable radio. You switch over, and you can literally create a chat group on the radio where you can bring everybody down for a sale fest. We have it. We know the departments that are in there on that system, and we would be able to communicate. So very shortly, we brought the CAS system over from Stonington, and we want to touch a truck and populate that. We'll have that in our dispatch area. We're modernizing our dispatch, and again, I got to credit Captain Jenkins, he's done a great job. We have a vision for what we want to do in there with cameras, et cetera, and give us some time, we'll add that up to what we foresee that, serving the people in the city of Groton. We could be on the state radio system, and we've also picked up body cameras that we should bring forward. The other thing we've done too is ensure that we had sufficient bandwidth and basically the lines are there to handle the upgrades of the system, because you can buy all the gadgets and it's like a fuse box. If you don't have the right fuses, it's just not going to work. And I'm very happy with the work of Captain Jenkins, because we've ensured that those logistics are taken care of, and that's not just going to flip it on and all of a sudden have a crash. So everything will be on there and be functional.
Anything else? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Captain Jenkins.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, we're gonna go to 765, Fire Department Vehicle Purchase. Chief?
Right, so this is to replace the current deputy chief's car, which is a 2010 with 116,000 plus miles on it. So it's pretty straightforward. We worked with finance to go through the state bid to get this quote right here. I don't know if you have any questions on this. Is the car and all the lights, the whole package. They'll do the work for us. Install, we have the radios, but they'll install the radios, so when it comes, it should be ready to go, ready to have a seal put on it and go in service.
And what do we do with the old vehicle?
We'll end up auctioning that.
Okay, so that's what we
We'll put that
typically do.
into,
Or
we'll keep that as we have a spare, and the old deputy chief's car, which is a Tahoe, will go away. So we have an extra vehicle the guys use if they're going to school, things like that, to move people around and such. So we will put it into reserve and then auction off.
Right. So it's not like we're building up a fleet.
No,
One of the oldest, sort of the worst shaped vehicle will go to
no,
auction.
we're actually downsizing because we had another vehicle that needs to be auctioned off, the old chief's car,
Right.
which we had kept to pull some of the trailers, which we just don't need. It's surplus, we're gonna get rid of it.
Chief, how many miles did you say you had on the vehicle?
116,000
Mhm.
current deputy chief's car,
Thank you.
and it's a 2010.
Those are in-city miles mostly.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is
mostly
it.
local
Stuff
miles,
is
not a
all-
lot of highway miles.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Councilor Depot?
Was this a planned purchase? We were already planning on purchasing this
Correct,
year?
yeah. We have the money in capital reserve fund, so it will come out of the budget.
Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, thank you, chief.
Thank you, Chief.
All right,
Merry
you
Christmas.
guys, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Sorry.
Okay, we're going to, let's do 742 Groton Utilities.
This must be the data by vehicles. We have two items. One is a couple of vehicles for electric, and the other is a couple of vehicles for water. The first two vehicles are 2009, they're Escape hybrids, each, the one with 115,000, the other one with 170,000. The Escape hybrids actually are becoming very maintenance heavy at this point. The, I was looking for what, how many miles on the other ones.
Yeah, that is right there.
Oh, it's right here. The other one is for water or electric. This is electric, the other is water. And they're turning in a 2007 Chevy Colorado, 2006 Chevy Colorado, and a 2012 Ford Escape hybrid with 73,000, 115,000, and 78,000. Again, mostly all local miles, all project manager kind of vehicles.
Councilor Depot.
So for the electric vehicles, we're trading in 2 fuel-efficient SUVs for 2 large trucks.
The project managers are out on the road all the time, going
Mhm.
through construction areas, and they fill the back with construction stuff. At the time, the Ford Escapes were hybrids.
Mhm.
Today, we can't find the hybrids, and the hybrids are also a bit small for the frame of most of the guys.
Councilor Depot.
So have we taken into account the increase of gas cost for that? Or is that not gonna cost more in gas, or how's that?
They're actually they're small trucks, they're Ford Rangers, so they're not the big, full-size pickup trucks.
Okay, so we're not expecting
They-
as well an
significant.
increase in budget
Right.
because of the gas differential? Okay.
Yeah, it's actually surprising that the hybrid technology hasn't come further. I mean, it's hard to buy a hybrid vehicle that, as a work truck.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments on these two motions, resolutions, rather?
So this is a smaller truck, but it has a bigger, it's got a bigger cab for the folks that are gonna be driving it? Is that what you were trying to say?
The Ford Escapes that are getting replaced are,
Escapes are SUVs.
it's more like a sedan, it's, it's a
It's
SUV, it's a
SUV.
small SUV.
Gotcha.
The truck has an open bed so they can toss stuff in the back.
Gotcha.
If they have to cover it, it'll have a cap put onto it.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, water treatment plant update.
There's two motions there.
Well,
Just
are you okay with combining those two together, or do you want two separate?
because of the way it lists out, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Understand, because we talked about both electric and water.
Yes. I think you could, well, the resolutions will be separate, correct?
The resolutions are separate.
Yeah, so you should probably have 2 different motions.
Okay,
because
fine. Then that was for the electric. Then we'll do a motion for the vehicles for the water division. I see the motion to move them to the mayor and council meeting of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, so we have approved motions for both sets of vehicles for 1/6/2020. All right, next thing is informing the water treatment plant update.
We're gonna update you on, the status of filtration plant PCB issues. At the last set of meetings, we actually went through and approved, change order 13. Change order 13 was for $1.3 million change to the filtration plant. Since then, we've hired a third-party consultant and had him get involved with reviewing the plans that we're proposing to the EPA. So that's a change. We also had a visit with the EPA to approve the work plan that was gonna be carried by change order 13. In their visit, they decided that Stantec's proposed method of, it was a risk-based plan. That method of dealing with the PCBs was inappropriate and not allowed by the regulations. So it was actually a good working session with the EPA, but at that point, change order 13 got taken off the table.
Councilor Debo.
So what you're saying is Stantec wasn't aware of the standard of the EPA when they made the plan?
Stantec was proposing a risk-based plan that actually did not remove all of the PCB containing paint. And they proposed that and thought the EPA would approve that. However, the EPA made it very clear in their visit that the EPA does not acknowledge any way that the law allows them to do that.
Go ahead, and then Councilor Depot, and then I will add a couple things.
So my question is, why are we working with a company that doesn't know the EPA standard before they propose something to us?
That's a good question. Go ahead, answer the question to the
So,
best of your ability.
well, that's easy. We've been working with Stantec for 10 years on this plan. They went through the design process, were awarded the construction. It was a design bid build project. In PCBs has come up as an issue at the time of the bid. And they do have people that are certified to deal with it. However, their performance at this point is not what we would consider.
All right, we've been talking about PCBs for 2 years. And we've been trying to get our arms around this, been wanting these guys to get in touch with EPA and do things. Mark Byron came on, he is the GM of operations. He's been on board about 8 months now. About 6 months ago, he started getting involved in this and got in the middle and we hired another consultant to get in the middle of this and help us out on this. We had the EPA come in last week. So here are my notes from this meeting. For the water treatment plant, new construction occurred, contamination was not addressed. There was new equipment that was put into a contaminated area. So when they come out, cut out the old equipment, instead of decontaminating the area fully like they should have done, they put new equipment back into an area and then sought to get the contamination remediation kind of blessed off, in my opinion. It's my opinion, based on the fact that it is now inaccessible. EPA called them on that. We got to go back to they didn't remove the contamination during pipe removal. We got to go back to the table, look at a phased approach, evaluate productivity versus removal. There's 3 specific areas we're looking at: pipe gallery, centrifugal pump room, and the slow mix room. Some of this is outside the scope of the project area. So what you have to remember is that you have this large building and there's PCBs everywhere in the old building. We had them when we walked in and they were tying the new building. The new building doesn't have PCBs, but they're tying in the new system to the old building, and that's where they ran into PCBs. We now have to figure out what the status is. What are they going to do? Where are they? To what standard do they have to remove? And EPA was fairly clear that they're not going to give them a lot of leeway on this. So the concern that I have is, how much is this gonna cost us and where are we gonna be on construction? But we have to take care of the PCBs. Now, in the end, when we're done, the PCBs are not gonna be done. We're not gonna be 100% removed. What's gonna happen is, somebody is gonna propose future removal. And what that looks like is a phased approach where they do what they have to do now in order to get the plant operable and to get it going. And then we will have a plan through capital investment and O&M to decontaminate the rest of the plant. And that plan could be, one of the numbers that was discussed was as long as 30 years. Okay, so that just pushes this out. It is allowable. EPA is a little uncomfortable with it. We don't know yet whether or not they're going to accept it. Right now, there is no potential water exposure issues. That's very important to understand, because the water is inside the pipe and does not come in contact. It comes from Smith Lake. It goes through a series of strainers and pipes to get into the system. And once it's in the system and in the new part of the filtration plant, and currently in the plant that we have no PCBs in the waters. And we do test for that. There's a question about cost. One of the things that I had done when I first found out that we had employees working in existing spaces where PCBs were accessible is I had air samples taken and swipe samples taken to ensure there was nothing that would just come off like friable, like asbestos. We're going to resample the air based on EPA's recommendation. They had questions, did we use the NIOSH standard or did we use the OSHA standard? And then they got into some of the technical things. Did we check for this? Did we check for that? So we're going to resample for that. We're going to determine the safety plan, determine whether or not we need PPE. The planning documents were based on risk-based disposal, and they never should have done that. And that's my big frustration now, is you got Stantec that's supposed to be the expert here. They are our construction managers, and yet the end date of the plant is in jeopardy, and the cost is now up in the air as far as what we're going to get done. We're going to finish the product. We're going to finish the project. We're going to get the water. What may happen is that we, the utility, may incur additional costs through CIPs or through long-range project and phased-in approach. I have no idea what that number is yet. We don't know yet. But once we get that information, I'm going to make sure you guys are well aware and the public is well aware of what's going on here. We are in discussions with the construction manager about what to do and where to go forward and how to get out of this. That's all I want to say on that at that point. So in use is not authorized. They were hanging their hat that they were going to get authorization. I don't know that that's why they delayed, but EPA was clearly unhappy when she was down here, the EPA rep. So there's contamination in the paint, the caulking, and the piping. So the question is going to be project work in scope versus CIP work. That's what we talked about the phased approach. There may be things that are currently scheduled in scope that may come out of scope so that we can get the other things done. And then we would have to do those as long-range CIP work. We talked about the pile of dirt. I think we talked about that. Did I mention that to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a pile of dirt that's got stuff in it. PCB contaminants are in it. From the get-go, that was mishandled. They never should have disturbed it. They should have sampled it then, set up a grid, identified it, got the big parts out, and then sampled. They didn't do that, so now we have 3,500 cubic yards of potentially contaminated soil. They should have sampled it up front. They didn't. They didn't segment the pile. We are now going to segment the pile and do samples and determine what that is. There's a potential that the cost will be anywhere from $25 a cubic yard to up to $100 a cubic yard. So we're still trying to figure this out and where we could dispose. What they have said is that we may not get to reuse the contaminated soil, and it cannot be reused as a remediation waste. So we had wanted to kind of use it as a fill, and they're probably not going to let us do that. We're going to have to properly dispose of it as waste, can't reuse it, and off-site disposal. So that's another cost to us. We briefed the Utility Commission last week. They are concerned about the cost of this. We, the director and I, owe them an answer once we get it from Stantec and from our people as far as what the plan is and where we go from here, and getting EPA approval, DEP approval. And the DPH, Department of Public Health, was there as well at this meeting. So we had the right people in the room. People are interested / concerned, and so we're about to get some help. Once we know more, I will tell you more, but right now that's all I know. But it was important to me to make sure you guys got this information so that you knew, what we knew. Right now, the project is what, 18 months out? That's the new date?
A little over 12 months.
Okay, a little over 12 months. We are scheduled to start the plant in operation in March, April timeframe. That will allow us to basically do an operability test on the new system, make sure that it works at the same time while we're running the old system so that we can still meet our requirements. And then at the same time, we're still doing the construction inside the building and the pipe galleries and things like that. There may be portions of the plant that will either one, be off limits completely, or two, be part of a plan for long-term demolition. Let's see, what else do I think I know? I think that's everything else that I know. Is there any gaps you want to fill in?
Last week we brought 2 of the large pumps online in the new part of the plant, so that operations functionability of the plant is currently still in motion. That's all still moving forward. We're also having our consultant, the third-party consultant at this point, visit the town of Southington to come up with a method to deal with the stockpile, the dirt pile. The EPA made a recommendation that we mimic the way that they treated their stockpile up there. So she came and gave bad news because the plan that Stantec was proposing was rejected, but she also made a lot of good suggestions on ways to make headway. Currently, management is moving some of the responsibility for coming up with the appropriate plan directly to the third-party consultant instead of Stantec. And then we're also leveraging Stantec's construction capability because of their knowledge of the design. But at this point, we've lost faith in Stantec's capability to deal with the PCBs directly. And this will be the third thing that goes wrong. First we had the pile, now we have the misstep on a plan, and we just got to keep it moving. We don't have time to screw up again. So we're steaming ahead with that.
What?
Deputy Mayor, Becker.
Thank you. What kind of recourse do we have with Stantec?
It may or may not be appropriate to talk about that here.
Fair enough.
I will tell you there are active discussions with phone calls going on.
I'd just like to make a statement. I just find this whole thing disappointing because this is a failure at the planning level, right? And I've had this discussion a couple of times with you and with the representative, I think back in September, and it's just this is abatement is something that goes hand in hand with new construction or renovation, and I just think the failure to catch this. I mean, the fact that we have PCBs, I believe it. We have a plant that's been there since the 30s. I get it, but the failure to plan adequately, and to have the EPA come in, at the last minute and say, no, this is like not what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, it's just very disappointing. I'm just kind of flabbergasted right now, so.
Understand. Let me go to Councilor Stanford first. And then
So throughout this 10-year project or 10 years working with this company, is the EPA just now getting involved throughout the whole 10 years?
PCBs was never brought up to be within the scope of the project or to be a construction issue until the project was bid 4 years ago when we bid it. In the process of the bids, the GCs asked if there were PCBs contained in there. So as a result of that, those inquisitions testing was done, and an allowance was put into the project to allow for that abatement. An allowance, I believe it was in the order of magnitude of 700,000, plus or minus.
well, we increased our contingency.
We also, but inside the scope of the project, there was a $700,000 allowance put in to deal with PCBs, and the contingency was opened up to be 10% to allow for overages to deal with it, without a direct plan having been formed. At that point, with the bids out, we were looking for the money to get the award done, and no one ever invested more money to come up with a plan ahead of time.
Does that address your question?
Partly, because you would figure once the PCBs were discovered, the EPA would have been involved at an earlier phase and could have given these recommendations 3 or 4 years ago, which probably could have cut down cost and had an effective way to, one, remove the dirt, or making sure that the new building would have not come online with a infected or possibly contaminated building. I was just thinking that.
Absolutely, I actually 100% agree. But there is no one on our staff that has dealt with PCBs before, and at that point you're relying on people to help guide you. And
Councilor Depot?
I think part of my issue with this is that when the PCBs were discovered and we discussed it, Deputy Mayor Beckford was pretty clear with saying, we need to make sure that nothing else goes wrong, and I don't understand why that message wasn't brought to Stantec to say, you better double check that you know what you're doing, because as in every industry, there are standards, and I understand right now the EPA is like all over the place. They've been for the last several years, but part of the job of a contractor like that is to keep track of stuff, to keep track of standards and know what the standards are. And the fact that they already messed up one time, and then they messed up with the PCBs in general, and then not to hold their feet to the fire to say, listen, make sure that what you're recommending is adequate, or make sure that all of your standards are up to snuff, is very disappointing, because we already went through an issue with them knowing that they were inadequate. So I guess to me it seems like there's a disconnect between us and the company, the contractor, to say, listen, you better make sure your stuff's in order, because this is unacceptable.
Councilor Carter?
I don't know. I see what everybody's saying. I do get that, but I think what the director is saying is that we hired a company. We know nothing about this. We hired a company to do a job, and I feel like a lot's on him or ground utilities, when I think we have to look at it in our perspective. We hire a contractor to take asbestos out of our house. They say they're qualified to do it. We're going to pay them to do it, and if they do it wrong, that's on them. That's not us. We know nothing about that, and I think we're assuming that he didn't hold them to the fire. I don't think we would hire people that weren't that we would think weren't capable of doing that, but whatever he says, we approve that at some point. We approve that, you know? So we approve that knowing that he hired somebody, or Groton Utilities hired somebody to do a job, you know? So I think that we're too far in. There is a relationship. There is a 10-year relationship. I think that does hold weight to just get them off the project and fire them and start over from scratch.
No.
That's I didn't say you said that, but I'm saying where we're at. And I think that's where Groton Utilities is at. So I think that we're kind of talking to the wrong person here. I think Santec needs to be held responsible. He's admitted that he knows nothing about that. Groton Utilities doesn't know nothing about that. We have nobody on the staff that doesn't know anything about that. So that I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, Councilor Depot.
But ultimately, the director is in charge of the project. That's my problem.
So
It is our
So while I
project.
agree that Stantec is the one that made the mistake,
mhm.
we depend on the utility director to be in charge of the project in general.
Oh, I understand that,
That's
but
all I'm saying.
what you're saying, and like I said, I'm not going backward. What you're saying is that I know he's in charge, but I'm saying that the director wouldn't knowingly say, okay, I mean, we don't know the conversations he has with the Santec people.
So
I-
everybody's right. Stantec is qualified, they have the right credentials to move forward and deal with this stuff. They are devastated that this plan was turned down. It hurts their reputation, it hurts the people that are working on it in that department with Stantec's reputation directly, especially in the New England area. They're absolutely devastated. We brought in the third party, we started doing that months and months ago. They went through and got involved with this plan as it was presented to the EPA. They thought there was a good shot that it could be possibly approved. They're treating this facility just like they would treat a school. They're removing paint that is 50 way out of arm's reach up in the air that no one will ever come into contact with, that they were gonna coat with encapsulating properties. The risk is zero on all of the personnel that would be involved in the plan. So once that was done and they went through that and presented that to the third party was even everybody. Mark Byron said it, the third party said it, we think we're good on that. That's good, should be able to go. However, the EPA did not budge on the regulation. So when they did the presentation, it wasn't like we had the option to push them approving the plan or not. It just was rejected. That being said, she came up with a very good way to work and move forward to deal with the PCBs at hand. Because even if you never could get anywhere near that PCB containing paint, the law states that you cannot have any paint in the building, unlike asbestos that can be encapsulated and left in the building because there's zero risk. PCBs, the way the law is written, right or wrong, have to be taken out of service and removed. So Stantec, had they have succeeded to get that approval, maybe that would have been breakthrough because it's never been done, maybe not. I am unsure.
Okay.
But the third party, Mark Byron, the entire team was on board with presenting that to the EPA. No one told us that that's a bad idea to do it. They may have said, geez, there's a chance that they could not approve this. I didn't hear it, but the Mark and the guys working directly with the third party and Stantec may have heard that.
Okay.
Okay? So they gave it their best shot. We'll see what the costs are. Long term, all the PCBs were gonna have to be dealt with in that plant or not, and this project does not have that within its scope from day one, from any version of the plant. It was only dealing with the PCBs that it touched or came in contact with. So, the difference is, at this point, the EPA is requesting a plan to deal with the PCBs in the entire facility, and she said, that's a long-term thing. That doesn't have to be done this year. It doesn't have to be done as part of this project, but we expect you to come up and give us a long-term plan with the facility on the way you're gonna deal with that over the next, and she said it could be out to maybe 30 years. Well, that was brought up in the meeting. I don't know if she said that, you know, she was bargaining quicker, and the project people were bargaining longer, just to give some reading.
The good news is she did not shut the job down. That was within the purview, was to shut the job down now until we figure it all out. So there is construction that is still continuing. The PCB remediation is stopping, but the other work is continuing so that we can continue to stay on track with the production schedule.
I need to
Counselor.
correct one thing you just
So-
said.
Okay, well, okay, correct.
PCB remediation and removal actually will be continuing in the beginning of January, because the original change order 4 that we approved right here to start sandblasting and removing the PCBs, we have $650,000 left on that change order that we didn't want to spend inappropriately without having the rest of the execution plan. Plus, at this point, we've learned that there's 2 ways to remove the paint. One is using chemical removal, and the other is using sandblasting. And the chemical removal seems to be cheaper, and that removal has not been the primary method used in this project to date. So the method of paint removal is changing, and actually, we've got approval from the DEP that it's okay to keep using that money for removal of the PCB containing paint. That was the only difference.
Councilor Carter.
I was just going back on not going back on what I said, but what I referenced before. I mean, it would be, my response would be different if you said that, because I did you allude that Stantec possibly knew that their plan may not be approved? Did you say that?
I think that the third party said there's a chance that it might not be approved.
And they told Stantec that, or Stant, right? All right. Well, then that's. Did we get that information afterwards, or?
It was all during the last couple of weeks coming up to the meeting.
Okay. So if that was said, would you be privy to that information as the director?
I'm going with the recommendation that the group comes up with and the team comes up with.
No,
The
no,
team
and
was
I understand that, but
independent.
there's difference between hiring somebody and say, all right, you do the thing, and then there's another difference between you hiring somebody and them still communicating with you and telling you that it possibly can't go through.
Well, remember, back in April, they actually gave the EPA their plan. They submitted the plan back in April,
Okay.
Almost a year ago now at this point, because we created that first change order to come up with the plan and deal with all these issues back last November. And then they went and they wrote the plan, they gave the plan to the EPA for approval in April, working with the EPA, where the EPA finally showed up on site to actually decipher exactly what was going on and work with the team, because they're like, we need an approval to move forward with the project.
Yeah, I think a lot with the frustration, and obviously, but it's not the first time. And if that did transpire, where there was if they knowingly knew that there was a possibility that it wouldn't go through, then there is a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at just for the future, you know.
Have a plan
Yep.
B in place.
Okay, any other,
I'd just like to make one more
Deputy
comment.
Mayor Beckford.
Mayor, if whenever the time is right, if this isn't the right place to have that discussion, I'd like to have a discussion in executive session about the recourse.
Okay. We'll schedule that.
We would do that after we do the utility
Sure,
commission.
at the appropriate time.
Would they be involved?
We will talk about how many executive sessions we have and who's gonna be where.
Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any other discussion on this line item? Okay, then we're done. Thank you. We're gonna go to 561, which is Groton Utilities Financials. That's informing.
And I'm gonna try to, in an effort to keep this very short, just I know everybody probably wants to get out of here. And these are just to the 5-month mark through November. So next month, what I'll do is I'll go back into the normal presentation with the financials, being that will be the half-year mark. So just as a very high level, if you don't mind me doing it this way, and then next month we can go back, but if you want to go through it, we can. Page 3 has the electric year-to-date. The revenue on actual is 20 million, the budget's 20.5 million, so we're just under.
I'm sorry, Ron, can you use the line numbers?
I was trying to skip
Oh.
through actually even looking at it. I was just gonna give you a high-end overview, but we can do that if you wanna go through. That's fine, but we're good. So if we go to page 3, line 21 is the, or actually line 19 is the electric revenue.
Mhm.
You'll see that there's 20 million actual, the budget's 20.4 million, so it's underneath the, by about 400,000 or 2.1%. And you can see it's just the shortfall in the residential and the commercial, and that's basically due to less heating days versus the prior year, and the budget for revenue is based on prior year. So then if we go down to line 52, which is net income from operations, see that the actual is just under 2 million, where the budget's roughly 1.4 million, so we're in good to the budget when it comes down to the net income of 575,000 or 42.5%. So right now, even though the revenues are a little bit short, the actual expenditures are lagging even further behind. Just kind of a very brief, quick overview of electric. Like I said, next month we can go back into it. We'll be at that half-year mark. It'll give us a better picture. So water, if we go to page 8, we'll just kind of do the same thing here. Line 17, which is the total water revenue, is roughly 4.7 million, or 4.8 million, where the budget's around the same, so it's $20,000 above budget or 0.4% above budget. If we go down to line 44, which is the net earnings before the DWSRF grant, you see that the net earnings is just over 700,000, where we budgeted a negative 168,000. So it's 877,000 over budget, or 522%. And again, it's the same thing. Revenues are exceeding the budget just slightly, and the expenditures are coming in like behind. And then if we go to page 13, which is the sewer. As you know from the previous one's presentation, with sewer revenue was trued up with the deduct meters, and that flows in line with the water now more closely. You'll see that the revenue is just under 1.8 million with a budget of just under 1.7 or 116,000. That's line 15, or 6.9% over the budget amount. And then line 37 is the net income from operations, which is at 678,000 with a budget of 310,000 or 369,000 over budget. So it's just kind of a very quick overview. If you have questions, you can go through them.
Councilor,
I just want to say, I'm sorry, you started saying page numbers, so I thought we were still flipping through pages. I wasn't trying to be like, that's all.
Well, like I said, next month we'll have a kind of a better picture. We'll be at that 6-month mark, a half year, and we'll get back to it.
all right. And that's it for utilities. We'll go to 690, which is city budget presentation. So we're done. Ron,
Thank you.
good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, this is through November. There's really nothing that jumps out as far as going through this. The one thing that I will let you know is that from the medical insurance and the pension and OPEB, that hasn't come out of this yet. So that's why the departments look a little bit better than they are really doing. That should all come out in December to true that all up. So just the percentages look like they're a little bit on the high side from where they should be as far as the year to date for all the departments, but those will be adjusted. We just do a one pension and OPEB contribution to the trust funds, and like I said, the medical insurance are the big things. But other than that, there's nothing that's out of line or any areas of concern at this point. And again, next month will be that half year mark, and we can go through it in a little bit more detail.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go to 748, which are the donation requests. The first one is Project O.
Should I hand something out before
Okay.
we start this? The mayor had asked about this earlier. It's a 2-page sheet. It's a front and a back. The front page has the fund donations by the fiscal year, and then on the back side of it, it's actually by the who we give the donations to. By vendor.
Thank you.
So it just kind of gives you a little bit of history from 2015 as far as the donations. One by year, and then on the back side, it's by organization. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, so the first one is a request from Project O. This looks like this is the first time they've asked, right?
And I did do a search in Springbrook, and that vendor did not appear.
Okay.
So it looks like it is true.
Okay, Project O is within the city boundaries. And how much, okay, so we have, so for 2020, we spent $1,450. And we have a total of $5,000 in the year to spend no more than 20% for any one contribution. So we can't spend more than $1,000 on any one donation. So just a reminder. I'm sorry, Councilor.
Just looking at the Project O request, and what we've already given out, you know, we stuck to $450 for the last 3 donations.
Sure.
And the Project O has an option for $475.
Okay.
I think it'd be smart to stick to that. I do think, you know, it's the first time they've requested, so definitely think it'd be good to add them to the list. And I know when I was in school, lots of my friends did Project O, and they really liked it, and it was really, you know, got them interested in biology and all that stuff. So I think
Okay.
it's definitely a good organization.
Any other discussion? Are you guys okay with $475 for Project O? Deb, do you want 3 separate?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
In that case, I need a motion to move this for the amount of $475 to the mayor and council meeting of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, the next is steps. And in 2000,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, can I say?
yeah, go ahead.
By looking at this, it says it provides 1 student tuition to Ocean Explorer Day Camp.
Yep,
You should probably change that to a city resident, because if not, they can give it to anybody they want to.
okay, then let me,
It's not just 475 to the program. It says 405 provides 1 student.
so we want to,
tuition.
so we want the 475 to go to a city resident.
If possible. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yep,
We have done that in the past.
Oh.
Put those numbers in there.
yeah, I think we have, and other donations, you're correct. Okay, not a problem, thank you. Okay, the next one is steps. Let's see, in 2019, we donated $500 for STEP. The request this year is $1,000 for steps. I think the request last year was $1,000 as well, but we provided $500.
So I have had the pleasure of, through the council here, to go to an event for STEPS, and, you know, they do important work with, you know, young women in middle school and high school, kind of at the critical age, right? Just providing good role models and, you know, giving them confidence. So this is something that I think we should continue to support.
Yeah, it's a great program, and I know B, and I know her husband Frank, and they're good people. They live here on Benham. So I agree, it is a good program. Is there a request amount? Do you wanna stay with the 500? Or is there another amount?
I think we can match what we provided last year. if
Okay,
that's the
that
will
was
of the council.
500
I
last
agree.
year. Okay. I need a motion to move this in the amount of $500 to Mayor and Council meeting of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Groton Scholarship Foundation. That, let's see, where are we here, Groton Scholarship.
It's early. Did we get this late last year?
Yeah,
Got in
February.
February.
Yeah. Groton Scholarship Foundation we got in February.
Oh,
So it was in this year, it was in this calendar year, not fiscal year.
I just wanna make a comment on this one, just again, doing a Springbrook, kind of just going through.
Yep,
From 2007 to 2011, Groton Utilities donated $1,000 each year to the program. Starting in 2012, right up through 2019, that's fiscal year, they've donated $5,000 to this. They have not done anything in 2020, but I'm assuming that will be going through.
okay.
So again, I don't know if anybody's spoke with Groton Utilities
No-
about this. one.
Nobody's talked to me, nobody's,
Just what we, from the conversation.
Well,
we had.
what-
Again,
what-
that doesn't mean you can't do it, but
No,
just wanna let.
no, I agree, but one of the things that we agreed to, Dan Bogues, is the guy that runs this over in the utilities, is that we agreed that if we got these, we would, he and Jill would bounce information off each other so we weren't double dipping.
Mhm.
So what I would like to do is hold off on this until I can find out, if Groton Utilities, because the Groton Utilities are gonna provide,
Yeah.
they'll actually provide more.
And right, and I don't wanna limit them and then say, well, we did it on the side, if that's, so I just wanna let you know what I found out when I looked at it.
Okay, not a problem. I will put this on hold, and if we find out that utilities decides no, then we can always bring it back up,
Mhm.
okay? And that's it for 748. Let's go to 760, hold on, 763, which is Beach and Park Committee. So we have 3 resolutions. One is for a bench for Shelby Olson, one is for Alfred and Arlene Restivo, and one is for Kyle Johnson.
We're doing them all together?
No, I think we should discuss them all together, and then I'll get a motion on each. Is that okay?
That's fine, yeah, they have gone through the Beach and Parks Committee and gotten approval from them. And I just wanna say that I personally knew Shelby Olson, and I think this is a wonderful thing to do for her and her family.
Well, and Al Restivo, you know
And
Al.
you know,
Al is the current Beach and Parks Director.
and I guess this is something their children are
Yeah.
doing for them for their 85th birthdays, which is very, very nice.
Councilor Depot.
I mean, I just wanna express, I think that having these go through Beach and Parks, you know, I don't know how much, if Beach and Parks is approving them, in my opinion, I'm fine with that.
Right.
Okay,
I'm fine with all of these.
okay, and then I will need a motion for the memorial bench for Shelby Olson for Mayor and Council of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Need a motion for Alfred and Arlene Restivo for 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. And lastly, a motion for Kyle A. Johnson for Mayor Council meeting of 1/6/2020.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, abstention. Carries us through. Hold on.
Mhm.
I need. I need a motion to suspend the rules to enter into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-206 Bravo to discuss strategy and negotiations with respect to pending claims or pending litigation.
Including her.
And just the council, you don't need, do you want, you're not aware of this, right? Okay, then I don't need you there. Just the council, mayor and council.
Some of it.
So, second.
Okay, we are in executive session, we'll go to C8. There is no action coming out of this meeting.